2K is a great long range and safe poke at -2, letting you go into 2D, then 236H or 236P, aka Spike, as typical enders. Ending with Spike is dangerous when you're close, since it's up to negative double digits, but works well as a safe frame trap when spaced, even catching backdashes. 2D Spike true strings up close and is counter hit punishable, so it shouldn't be done at that range, though for most characters it'll be hard to punish in general. 2D into 236H is mashable, but when spaced out, it can clash even with DPs. Doing 2D into 214P without an error stored is very negative, but 214K leaves you -8, which still isn't great, but keeps you safe from reversals. 2K6P is an alternate block string since it true strings unlike 2K2D, but it has significantly less range, and you give up the double low. 5K is a slower but disjointed poke that true strings into 2D unless you choose to manually delay it. The downside is that it's punishable at -7, but makes up for it by being jump cancelable, letting you reset pressure or even punish small mashes. Air dashing down forward and down back both work because of how strong JS is. This lets you set up double overheads and other mix-ups I'll talk about later. As usual, his close slash is plus, letting you set up tick throws and stagger pressure. However, every follow-up is punishably negative on its own except for 5H due to pushback. This isn't a huge problem, but it prevents any meaningful stagger pressure past close slash. Unfortunately, 214K doesn't make either slash attack less negative, it actually makes it worse. The typical string from close slash is just close slash into far slash or 2S, then 2H. This is a nice block string simply due to the high number of low attacks, with 2H having 5 lows by itself and being cancelable after any of them. A standard ender is just 2H into 236H. The first knowledge check on this character is knowing that there is always at least a 3-frame gap between far slash or 2S into 2H. This leaves it vulnerable to reversals, and since far slash and 2S are both at least -9, any 9-frame reversal will punish any option other than a true string 5H or simply being spaced out. The gap is nice for catching people trying to mash normally and is great for catching backdash, but its big flaw is that the 3-frame gap makes it throwable. If they aren't aware that they can throw the gap, your life gets a lot easier, but if they do, then you'll now have to engage in RPS. Since they'll have to be guessing that you go into 2H immediately, doing slash into immediate 236H will leave you plus on block and give a nice combo on counter hit. Doing a slight delay 5H for a frame trap also gives a great combo if you confirm into 214K. But also simply doing a slight delay on the 2H can make it punish throws too. Bedman does also have a command overhead through 6H, but since it's 28 frames against crouchers, it's rarely used outside of combos or for setting up Oki due to the knockdown time it gives. Like I said before, up close you can use Spike, but generally it's pretty bad. Even if you manage to frame trap and counter hit them, you'll be negative enough to be punished on your own counter hit if you're close enough. If you're going to use it, it's best to do it when spaced, like after the final hit of 2H, since doing it earlier than that leaves you in a punishable range. Something else important to note is that cancelling into Spike before the final hit of 2H is 6P'able, but since every hit of 2H is a low and they need to stand to 6P, they'd be taking a big risk for the callout on the specific timing. Since 2H has so many hits and can be cancelled at any time, you may want to do 236H, and you could probably get away with it. But with the only frame trap option being punishable even if you hit them, it's more of a knowledge check. Close slash into dash care 236H is a nice way to stay plus and force a guard crush strike throw situation. Just make sure to stop them from mashing by doing frame trap slashes. This even auto times the H error, aka bomb, so that you can OTG with Beyblade. All of Bedman's air normals are great. JH being incredibly active, hard to 6P and very plus, JS vacuuming in on top of being disjointed, JK's downward angled hitbox great for confirms and pressure, JP for air airs, and JD for extensions of mix-ups. JH can be double digits plus, and you can land JS deep enough to true string into close slash or easily set up throws. But JS is great for being a spammable option that sets up a high-low with land 2K versus JD. After doing the JD, you'll always want to jump forward and be ready to JK to confirm. If they blocked it, you can always retreat or choose to go back in. JS JD can be 6P'd, but with the threat of the low, it's still a guess for them. And depending on how you hit it, it can vacuum them in enough to cross up to the other side, and even if they try to backdash, JD will catch it. JH into JD also works really well, especially after they block so many overheads, they're not so likely to expect another delayed one. Sometimes JH by itself is enough to catch people off guard. But when going for JD into jump forward, JK can whiff if they choose to crouch after blocking JD. If they try to 5P anti-air, then JK can counter hit them, but larger 6Ps can punish you. I doubt many would be ready to block the JD and punish with 6P, but the bounce on JD is very generous, so I recommend learning to react and only JK if you see they got hit by setting them to block random and counterattack 6P. This is still a very powerful and very accessible mix-up that works even to pull them out of the corner, but if they FD, it'll be harder to cross up. Changing the timing of the JS will change the height of the JD, making it so you may not cross up, so practice different timings to control the left-right. Now that we've covered the basics, it's time to see how FD interacts with his offense so far. With enough dash momentum and staying close, you might get away with a 236H, but generally you'll get pushed out to make it Whiff. Even if you get a close slash dash care 236H, you'll likely not be in range of even 2k. But if you partially charge 236H, it'll bump you up from +3 to +9, letting you close some distance. If somehow you could get the fully charged 75 frame startup with them sitting there, you'll reach +15, but it's not likely you'd get away with that. Like I said, FD messes with the JS, making it so you can't cross up, but you still get the high-low. One benefit is that close slash far slash 2H outspaces throw, so you can do the basic string without fear other than reversals. This will be very important for corner pressure. For gapless pressure, JS close slash right into 2H is about as good as it gets, but if they FD'd at all, you should get spaced out enough for an unmashable 236H, though it'll probably just whiff if they didn't press a button. Since FD is them showing respect, take advantage of it and reset pressure with jump cancels into air dashes. Use these air dashes to set up strike throws or high lows. For corner pressure, you'll be doing a lot of 2H, so if they know how to beat it with throw, make sure to start delaying it a little to punish, or throw in some frame trap 5Hs. And if they're scared enough to start FDing, it makes your 2Hs worry-free, though it'll make your follow-up pressure worse. At least it'll catch both throws and 5-frame mashes. Committing to the safety of close slash far slash 5H is fine, but if they FD, you'll be sent pretty far back. To fight this, cancel 2H in the middle of the attacks to keep the forward momentum, or do 5H into spike and 214P to threaten them with shock. Waiting for the final hit of 2H before canceling will keep you out of range. While canceling 236H early is mashable, when they're FDing they can't mash, so they've likely committed to blocking. Seeing this commitment can let you get away with the partial charge 236Hs, making your pressure even better than if they didn't FD. And here's where we get introduced to error chaining. After 236H, dash up close slash far slash 2H into 236P right around when the bomb automatically triggers. This lets you store shock while gaining the plus frames from the bomb. Then do the same thing, but now you get to do 236H while shock covers you. After this, using RC is the best way to keep your turn, but for now this is an overview. If you get spaced out too much to get a close slash, then far slash 2H into Wild Assault easily lets you run up into partial charge 236H to start the chain. Since normal 236H is only +3, you can't always just run up and close slash, so threatening with 2D and far slash is good to start with when being FD'd out. They may not always reach, but they will catch any type of forward movement. RC turns Bedman's pressure from pretty basic and interactable into long sequences of mix-ups and borderline uninteractable plus frames. Like many others, Bedman has access to close slash IAD BRC to set up a high-low, but his gives even more options. For the low, just do JK into 2K and it gives enough time for a close slash. For the overhead, you can do JK into dash jump JK for a fuzzy, which works on FD because of the dash jump. You can also do JK into air dash JK, then JD for a triple overhead. Since they're going to be respecting the mix, doing dash jump into JD gives a cross-up. But generally, you just do JK into JD for the double overhead. Doing this can set up more overheads with air dash canceling the JD into JS, leading even into cross-ups if they don't FD. And if you did 236H into 5K then the BRC, it lets you go for 4 overheads into plus frames to set up even more. This even works against FD and mid-screen. Just remember that the final JS into JD is 6P'able, so mix in the JS into 2K. Doing 236H fast red RC works to make you very plus mid-screen, but is a bit more difficult to make full use of versus FD. If you think they'll be mashing, you can do a slight delayed spike into PRC for a combo or plus frames. Or do Beyblade into up RC, then air dash JH for a frame trap. This lets you do close slash into tap dust, which combos into the automatic S error, but the tap dust needs a slight delay. And you can do close slash into 2S for the low option. Replacing JH with the delayed JS also works for setting up high lows. From before, we talked about doing 236H while covered by shock. This is good, but when they FD, you'll be too spaced to continue good pressure without a bit more risk. Like midscreen, after doing 236H, you can RC into 214P to immediately launch the bomb, leaving you extremely plus. While doing regular RC is great and leaves you plus 38, doing fast red RC saves you meter and makes you plus 49. This plus 49 gives you enough time to dash up and partial charge the 236H to get the plus 9 timing by holding it until it hits on at least frame 39, giving better pressure. Another fast RC method is after 236H leaving you plus 3, 5K is the best button, so 5K dash BRC 2K lets you continue the pressure while staying close. After 236H, you can just threaten the frame trap of 2K or 5K and end with 214P to launch the bomb manually, but it'll have a pretty big gap. Something to note is that 2K and 5K do both frame trap, but 5K is 6Pable. And when spaced out more, treat the RPS around 6P the same when doing far slash and 2D. Combining fast RC bomb with manual bombs when spaced out can lead to huge chip damage with few interaction points. And if you're worried about them mashing or jumping out during the manual release, you can do 214K instead of 214P to fake it out, keeping you safe and letting you react. Another RC option is after 2K 2D, fast red RC into 2S2H to set up the arrow chaining. This is pretty good, just be careful about what spacing you do it so you don't leave a throwable gap. If you want to be extra safe, just regular RC forwards and do close slash 2H. Since white wild assault is negative, it's still useful, but becomes much better with RC. Doing a fast RC into partial charge 236H can frame trap, where a non-charged one leaves you point blank and plus with the error stored. 2D is an important Oki tool, but unfortunately it doesn't really have any safe follow-ups unless you're spaced like I mentioned before. Using 214K is overall the safest option, and it gives you the best way to set up Oki on hit. Most of Bedman's game plan revolves around getting the bomb stored, so either ending combos with 236H or meeting on Oki with it. 2D into 214K gives more than enough time to run up and partial charge 236H to be +9 since it's +47 on hit. If you're close enough, timing a dash uncharged 236H can be even better, leaving you up to +11 if you have the explosion hit on the later frames. This will meaty while being more plus than the partial charge and be backdash while giving full combos, but it's not safe to reversals. Doing the partial charge for Oki can also catch backdashes, but it'll depend on how you timed it. If you're scared of reversals, then super jump, air dash, JH can safe jump. There are a lot of ways to make it so as JH safe jumps, but they generally have manual timings, so mess around and see how you like to do it. The downside to meeting with JH, especially if you get all the hits, is FD pushes you far away. But an upside is that it gives you JD at any point for a mix-up off the safe jump. You can bypass the meaty 236H or safe jump and just do dash up, cross up JD. In the corner, it gives enough time to dash OTG close slash into dash care 236H. Another option is 2D into immediately fully charged 236H. It gives a nice combo if they get hit and beats smashing. It may or may not beat DPs based on the spacing, and same goes for backdash. You'll probably only want to go for it if you're pretty close to them. More often than not, you'll be confirming 2D into Beyblade, which lets you run up and close slash stringing into the start of error chaining by doing spike or bomb during the explosion. Pairing this with what we've learned so far will give you the basic structure for how to convert straight hits into corner pressure. When covered by the S error, the explosion can mask the startup of tap dust, making it a decent option with RC. And like I said before, you can always take advantage of the respect and go for JDs or air dashes. A lot of hits will come from air-JS, which lets you go into the close slash series, popping them up higher for Beyblade, giving knockdowns enough time to safe jump. It can be a bit difficult to counter hit 6Ps, so JK can be better for this. If they didn't FD the JK, then close slash 2H sets up for a partial charge 236H, getting the pressure going. Without RC to fill the gap, 5K jump cancel air-JS is very common for pulling them back in while being plus and hard to contest. But after error chaining into spike, you're plus enough to do another jump in with JH, killing a lot of time to set up 236H again covered by shock. The main weakness here is FD. You may be +9, but it's not exactly enough to safely continue the pressure. If you cancel into 236H early from 2H, you'll stay close, but you have to hope they kept FDing since there'll be a sizable gap depending on how long you charge for. FD also isn't as big of a deal if you did the safe jump with JS over JK. But if you do get spaced out, you can threaten manual release of the bomb mixed in with fake outs of 2 and 4K, on top of far slash and 2D like before. If you can get them to block the bomb, then you're able to set up the high-low throw from JS and probably build enough meter to start extending with RC. And remember, you can cover the gap with white wild assault. When doing the pressure, timing the partial charge 236H is important. Release too early and you won't get the +9, but release too late and you'll be mashable. And keeping it simple, if you get the JS at the start, that's immediately a setup for a high-low throw. Your goal will be to get them to drain their meter FDing so you can force them to commit to guessing on your RPS. Without FD, they'll have to take a lot of chip damage and have to guess whether they should try to throw the 2H or mash on the 236H or the 5K air dash resets. Something to note during the air chaining, you will want to slightly delay the slashes so it kills enough time for the bomb to come out by itself. If you do the 5k IAD reset, then this isn't a problem, but it takes on more risk. You can also safe jump with JH and true string with RC for a while, which can be useful against people who DP a lot. And remember that JS safe jump can steal corner if they don't FD. When you have the meter, extending with RC makes it even more oppressive. Doing up fast RC by whiffing JP lets you air dash JH, killing a lot of time to easily set up another 236H. And the block string is so long you'll build potentially enough meter to do it again. They'll probably be too scared to mash on the charging 236H, but it's worth practicing how to time it so they can't mash. It might get messed up if they got hit by 2H and your 236H misses, so be ready to react to 2H hitting. It still has a throwable gap between far slash and 2H. If they FD, you won't get close slash, but far slash will frame trap and 2H will combo off of it, so it's not a free escape for them. If it doesn't combo, then there might be a jumpable gap depending on when you launch the spike, and if you slightly delayed the 2H to kill time. To beat FD, replace JH with JS, and as long as they kept FDing, the rest will be safe without the throwable gap. If you stick with JH and they FD, then far slash into 2H will have a gap that is mashable and jumpable. If you think they'll do either of those options, then you can do far slash into 214P, then react and punish their escape attempt. If they didn't do anything, then you get to easily reset your pressure. But since there's a big gap between far slash and the bomb connecting, stay alert. Reacting to being spaced out by just doing far slash twice is another solid option, catching small mashes and potentially jump attempts, letting you error chain too. For the fast RC 214P, even against FD you should be able to at least threaten 2K2D and another 214P. If they block it, you can threaten a guard crush strike throw, or dash up 236H to reset the same situation. The problem is the big gap between 2D and the bomb connecting. Though it will catch people running at you, it may be better to try to catch people jumping out while the ground is covered. Use that threat to dash up close slashes and steal another turn, just remember they can mash if you get pushed out like that. You could also still be in range of 5k, letting you air dash into a better pressure reset. The nice thing about the air dash reset is that you don't have to immediately commit to the air dash, and you can just hover to bait. It's also good that it catches people trying to jump out, and with how disjointed and low JS is hitting, 6P is unlikely to actually counter hit or potentially even punish, even when mashing. You would think Deflect Shield would be a big problem, but it's pretty difficult to find the right time to do it, since 2H is advancing and spike or errors will be covering a lot of potential gaps. Deflect shielding the 236H seems to be the best way for them to force distance between you, but you'll still have the error loaded. It is pretty telegraphed if they know how the arrow chaining works, so unless you're fully charging, this is likely the best spot for them to force space. If they force you to hit 236H spaced out, their best bet is to jump out there, but Bedman's disjointed and high reward JS keeps it from being a free escape. While starting your Oki with 236H is good, it's even better to get the Oki by hitting 236H. It's much harder to get this set up, but a common situation is from JD starters. This comes up through the double overheads, cross-ups, and throw baits that you should make good use of. Anti-airing is another good way to set up 236H Oki, but it is a bit strict on the timing. If you're a little late to the combo into the grounded string, they might not be high enough to connect into 236H. Once you get it, you can go for JS or JH safe jumps into high lows, leading to more high lows like we talked about before. Having both a vacuum and a multi-overhead setup is great, especially when you have the bomb stored. You can also go for the cross-up, which leads back into the same setup. And if you're close enough, you can OTG close slash IAD JS if you want more corner carry. If they end up blocking the mix, then they'll have to block another since they'll be guard crushed by the bomb. If you just want to go right into the mix rather than having better pressure after, dash up 214P right around when they hit the ground to Meaty guard crush. It's plus enough to jump forward and land into a low while true stringing it easily. Since it's guard crush, they'll have to block the left-right on top of the high-low, so ambiguous cross-up or same-side JD is great on top of dash jumping to potentially land cross-up for a low 2k. The later air dashes into overheads work well too, but maybe a little telegraphed. And to add another layer, doing something basic like just a falling JS, then go for a cross-up JD. On top of having so many options, it automatically catches backdash too since it's so active, making this incredibly powerful. In the corner, OTG close slash into TK manual release sets up an easy high-low that beats mashing and backdash. Replacing the OTG close slash with a deep dash into 2P lets you get a quick throw in before the bomb reaches them. You have more time than you think, so make sure to dash deep or you might not be in range for the throw. Another way to set up mix is to dash jump with JS. This kills time to help set up the right height for an air dash overhead to pair with an empty land low. Even if they block the overhead and FD, you'll be able to set up the arrow chaining nicely. While 2K is a better option for the low, it'll leave a jumpable gap if you try to error chain from it. So if you're okay with a slower low but better reward if they block it, then 2S2H is the better choice. This can also work mid-screen, so mix and match these setups as you like. The Whiff JS Oki also works from throw, but it won't have the bomb stored, so it's less effective on block. Normally from throw, you'll set up a safe jump by jumping into air-JH, but you can just as easily set up a cross-up with JD. And similar to 2K2D, doing a Meaty 236H works well. In the corner, OTG close slash into dash care 236H is nice, but you can also OTG into a safe jump setup. And as you know by now, you can replace JH with JS to fit in some extra mix-ups. Another setup is OTGing with Beyblade to store an error, then killing time to start error chaining. The typical close slash far slash 2H RPS should be fine, but you can always throw in a Wild Assault if you like. My favorite setups are disjointed left-right Oki, but they need RC or a previous setup to work. If you can get a 236H to hit high enough that you can follow up with 5K6H, then you get this mix. Simply dash up and jump to cross up. Here just showing with the recordings you have to block a cross up. And for same side, you just jump forward, then press the dash key to hover in place in front of them, then air dash down to confirm. To make it really ambiguous, you can hover early, then air dash forward, and depending on your timing, it could hit left or right. It's even possible it hit left, then your JD hit right. And you can jump forward to make it hit on the right side, then air dash back to hit them on the left. Tap Dust Fast RC 236H sets up a different way to do it, ending with close slash into jump forward air dash to cross up. What's great is if this hits, you can set up the other Oki I just mentioned. Depending on the height or timing of the air dash, you may or may not cross up, so mess around to find the ambiguous timings. And this works in the corner too, assuming you have enough wall health for it. This is probably a worse version overall, but you can TK Beyblade, and depending on the height, you can go right over their head, or have their push box prevent you from crossing up. A hybrid of the two setups works from a fast RC from a close slash starter, but I think it's better to route into up RC to give the better setup. From 2K2D, you'll have to RC right after the 2D rather than Beyblade, or the gravity will mess it up. Using 214K before going for throw lets you get a high-low, and if they block the bomb standing, you can fuzzy them. Instead of JK, you can do JH for more overheads, and it'd be better to confirm with BRC if you have the meter. Fast RC 214K into air dash tick throw times it so the bomb gives a free follow-up combo. And while I don't really recommend it, doing 214K to reset the timer on errors can be useful, especially if you know they're scared to mash. At least 2H into 214K is only -8 and spaces you. When doing 6H on block, if you ever do it, 214K is the safest option, but you can throw in 236H if you trust in it. And as we've seen, 6H gives a lot of knockdown time, even comboing into 236H for Oki, but this 6H into 214K gives more than enough time to dash up and do plenty of the setups already shown. Just to wrap up Oki, here's a few setups that let you combo into Tap Dust after ending a combo with an error stored. Safe Jump JS into close slash Tap Dust confirms off the explosion. 236H Oki into Safe Jump then the same also works and even loops into itself again. It's also possible to chain into Spike and have the shock combo, but it's much more strict and corner only. Install is incredibly powerful as I went over in the first video, but it's great being able to cancel into install on block through close slash, 2D, and the H normals and be between +4 and +6. A very basic case would be meeting with 236H, then going into close slash, then install. If they weren't FDing, then doing close slash far slash 2H into install also sets up a very strong situation. The pressure reset with air dashing becomes more powerful too. Overall, I think install is more useful for combos and wallbreak situations, but it's nice to have more plus frames and visual noise. For wallbreaks, using his super for hard knockdown, instant air dash JS works well as a safe jump, though it is a bit strict to time. If you go a bit further before pressing JS, you can catch backdashes, which is great to have. Comboing into install and storing the bomb before breaking the wall leads to a really strong situation, since once you launch it, it doesn't matter if you get hit. If you store it out of install and are able to get a super to wall break still, then you can meaty with it, which is arguably stronger. This will let you use the positive bonus to build a lot of meter and start pressuring without going into meter penalty. And remember that breaking the wall with errors in install gives a hard knockdown like super. Sometimes you may want to keep the corner, and from 236H Oki, you can OTG 2H into 214P to safely restart the pressure. To be a bit tricky, you can air dash down forward and whiff JH to fall faster and go right into 2S2H. Once you see the wall splat, cancel into 214K and fully charge 236H. The 214K cancel leaves you plus 77, and the fully charged 236H takes 75 frames, so you'll easily be able to meaty having it auto-timed. Once it lands, you'll be plus enough to run up and continue normal pressure. If the wall was already partially broken, and you want to try to set it up from a grounded hit, make sure to delay the far slash or 2S after the close slash so they aren't popped up into the air. Thank you for watching.